Hello and welcome to another edition of the Rider Rumblings podcast. This is episode 202. I am Taylor Shire. He is Darrell Davis, and we're talking about the Saskatchewan Roughriders as they are set to visit the Hamilton Tiger Cats on Saturday after their second straight win last week against Ottawa. It was a few days ago now, Darrell. It wasn't this greatest performance of all time to write home about, but the way they won in the second half in that dominating fashion when everyone expected them to win is certainly the biggest takeaway for me.
Yeah, I think Ottawa caught them off guard a little bit, and they had to make some adjustments, which they did. They're a good team, the Rough Riders. They won the Grey Cup, so they know how to fix things. Ottawa is in really rough shape, though. I think that proved that to us. Since then, they've been cutting more players, they're changing coaches. That's a franchise in a lot of turmoil at the moment. The Rough Riders are nothing like that. The way they rebound and get things together after a rough start. It was a slow start. It's pretty impressive, right? They do so many things right, and they keep their cool so well. And it stems from quarterback Trevor Harris and head coach Corey Mace, but the whole team seems to adapt that attitude.
Yeah, I can remember watching the game when Hamilton they hadn't won yet, and they beat, was it 2003? I don't remember the year exactly, maybe 04, when they came in and beat Saskatchewan. It was just like, this team is not even close to what that team was, or Edmonton in 2024. Corey Mason, Trevor Harris both referenced that leading up to the sort of, we called it this trap game, right? When the winless team came in and faced a 5-2 team, obviously a favorite. This team and the culture and everything they built won't allow that to happen. Obviously, a good team can win on any given week, but the Riders weren't going to let the Redblacks beat them.
No, they made the adjustments they had to. There's no panic, right? We can second guess some of the strategies. I'm sure we might talk about the punting and kicking stuff, but otherwise, they know what to do. It's really a sense of calmness over that whole on-field product, right? The coaches have worked together now. They know their strategies better. They know how to adjust things. When you got a computer like Trevor Harris running the offense, and he's just so efficient, and he knows what he's doing. He ran a couple of times, which makes everybody worry a little bit, but he finds receivers. And when you think about the group he was playing with, Taylor, that was really impressive, right? He's missing Sam Emelis and Ken Schaefer-Baker, two of the best receivers in the Canadian Football League, and still manages to throw touchdown passes, set things up anyway for that offense. Really impressive. They're not that team that they used to be.
Yeah, and without AJ Ouellette as well, who's
good point.
Not only their best running back, but their best blocker for pass protection in the backfield. And defensively, for them to get it done without Roland Milligan, without Tavon Campbell, who would be, I would say, two of their top three defensive players, along with Jameer Thurman, who's still a force in the middle. I think having two of your top pieces on defense, they didn't necessarily miss a beat, because a few weeks ago they got beat for 500 yards by Cody Fajardo with them in the lineup, and they held Jake Mayer to 300 and some, but they held them off the scoreboard essentially when it mattered.
Well, yeah, especially in the second half, right after Ottawa had put together a respectable first half, but yeah, the team just got better the way they were adjusting. Jonathan Edward, who I spoke with in last week a little bit, really wanted to get that first interception by a defensive back. He dropped one earlier and then ended up getting that first one, which I think is another monkey off their back, right? That they're able to say, okay, a defensive back now has an interception. We don't have to worry about it as much. They're piecing it together when you think about it, and all the replacements that they've had to go through, especially in the secondary, right? Nelson Lacombo's coming back and moving over to corner, and missing Campbell, all the people they've had filling in for Roland Milligan. Yeah, it's really it's been a tough, hard scrabble year for them, but they made enough big plays, and they've shut down that defense. I think that 500-yard game by Cody Fajardo really kind of got under their collar a little bit, and I think they're a little angry, and they've played a lot better since then.
Yeah, and Jonathan Edward is such a unique story, because oftentimes we talk about, especially with Canadians, you draft them, you develop them. Oh, maybe they'll become starters, right? Especially in the defensive backfield, doesn't come around too often. Or you sign an NFL guy who, like Tavon Campbell or Nelson Lacombo, right? He's been groomed to be a starter or groomed to be in this position, but then Jonathan Edward is a 30-year-old veteran who was cut by Toronto after several years there and was on the couch, essentially, as they say. And the Riders need an injury replacement when Milligan goes down. They sign him, and all of a sudden he's the starter. And I'm just surprised that he hasn't found a home anywhere based on how he's playing this year.
Yeah, I asked him why they released him in Toronto, and he thinks it's because his salary was going up, right? He said that suddenly I was going to be a six-figure player, and a Canadian who wasn't necessarily a full-time starter, and they just released him, and they drafted two younger players too in Toronto. So, and a coaching change, right? So he was just kind of left out, and they snapped him up pretty quickly when Milligan went down. He's fast, man. He can run like crazy, can't he? So they've even got some trick plays in on special teams because of him. When we talk about him being a Canadian, he's considered a national, even though he's an American. He went to school for 3 years at Carleton, and that allows him to be a national. And this was kind of his plan. He talked to a former Canadian Football League or a Canadian player who told him, why don't you go up to Canada and play and get eligible for the draft? And while he was doing that, I believe the CFL changed its rules to allow him to be considered a national player. So it's worked out really well for him. He's really happy to be in Saskatchewan, loves his teammates. He says they've accepted him really well. So that interception, I think, meant more to him than just a single statistic on the score sheet.
For sure. And for him to get the first interception, outstanding. And he's probably going to fill in for as long as Milligan's out, which sounds like it could be quite a while. But I think he's also probably one of the most valuable special teamers that this team has. There are a lot, right? Nick Weeb's a good player. Aubrey Miller's a good defensive player. But John Doe, as they call him in the locker room, he's always down there making big plays especially on punt return. Yeah,
and that's why they Corey Mace, the head coach, explained that to you guys in the post-game media scrum, that they line him up behind the punter and get them downfield so well that they hem in. He's so fast, and he's also eligible too, right? They could actually grab the ball if they're down there, but they figure they can get down in field and cover so well that, and Oscar Chapman, their punter's doing pretty well, so they think that that's a real good strategic play to hem in the team, and it looked like it was going to be okay, although obviously Ottawa put the drive together, but the plays seemed to work out. But in so doing that, they were punting from from Ottawa's 42-yard line and decided against going for a 49-yard field goal. And I know that we didn't bring up the kickers, but it just means that their strategy seems to change, Taylor. And we've talked about the kicking. Alex Hale made both field goals. He made all 4 converts, but they're still not confident in him, I think, to make a 49-yard field goal. And that's really rare in the Canadian Football League, and it might hurt them. We keep thinking it might hurt them, but Corey Mace says, hey, we struggled last year's kicker with Brett Lothar and still won the Grey Cup. So I guess they've got a point in that respect. But one of these days, you keep thinking, disaster might happen.
Yeah, they didn't need those 3 points. And based on what happened the last time he kicked into Pill Country from 40+, I wasn't overly surprised. But yes, anytime it's in the 40s anywhere, it should be sort of this automatic, we're going to go for it. Then when you get back to the 50s, okay, we can decide if it's worth it. Where's the wind? Are those 3 points crucial at this point in time? Or would a good punt hand them in? And I feel like Chapman did a good job and has done a good job of hemming the opposing teams in with Jonathan Edward and other guys on coverage. And that punt situation, again, we can second guess it and whatnot, but that set up an interesting play because a couple of plays later, the Riders blocked a punt, but had it called back for a unnecessary roughness penalty on the long snapper. What were your thoughts on that penalty? Because it was
that one's still being talked about a fair bit, right? The argument is that who got penalized? It was Adams, right? Devin Adams, defensive lineman, hit. When I saw it the first play, I thought that it was a helmet to helmet. To me, it looked like a helmet to helmet collision as the center Adji was standing up, the Ottawa long snapper. So I thought, okay, that could be a penalty. Adji, as you wrote about the broken arm, I think, a serious injury. They're in such a vulnerable position that their heads are down, and they've rewritten the rules over the last few years to make it safer for those long snappers. So they don't, because they used to just get bowled over in the old days, right? And they decided we can't do that. These are, and to be honest, they're a skilled player in a lot of ways, aren't they? Not many guys have that skill to be able to long snap. So you don't want these guys getting hurt. Not that they're high-profile guys, but you have to protect them a little bit. I know Rough Rider fans are mad and say, oh, man, that shouldn't have been a penalty. But, geez, the guy got hurt on the play. He's in a vulnerable position. I had no problem with the penalty when I watched it being called. I thought what they have to do is make sure that guy is safe And to the letter of the law, letter of the rules, basically, you can't hit him when he's vulnerable. And he's still, to me, I know everybody's saying he was stand up. No, he was still in the process of standing up, and he was in a vulnerable position just because of the position he plays. So yes, it could have turned the game around because Saskatchewan recovered and basically scored a touchdown on the play that was disallowed because of the penalty. I had no problem with the penalty. If they're going to protect quarterbacks that way, then they should protect their long snappers too. And it's really unfortunate the guy got hurt. And it changed the game, didn't it? Because no longer could Ottawa even try field goals. They were having trouble with their converts. Lewis Ward missed 2 converts because he's got a new long snapper. So I see why Rider fans are angry about the penalty, but I think that it had to be called.
I think it was the right call, and I sort of thought that right away. And it wasn't intentional. If you watched it, Devin Adams, anytime you line up over the long snapper, you have to give him like a 2-yard halo, I believe it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And so Devin Adams is lined up 2 yards away. The long snapper has plenty of time, but then he gets like rolled in after he goes on his initial hit, gets rolled in. So it wasn't intentional. And then he makes unintentional contact with the long snapper, sort of rolls on top of him. Adji goes down with a hurt arm. So it wasn't like Adams decided to bull rush him. And to your point, I don't think he had snapped the ball, but I don't think he was fully set. He was up, but it's not like his feet were planted. This would be a deep conversation to have with a guy like Mike Benson or Jorgen Hughes last year.
Yeah.
To be like, okay, at what point are you set? At what point are you ready? Do you have to stand up and then plant your feet? Because that's what I would say. You don't just stand up because you're not really fully set at that point if you're standing. If you stand, then you sort of do a little shuffle, then you're fully planted. Because I've seen that before, right, where a long snapper will snap the ball, and then he does a little quick shuffle with his feet, and then he can decide to pick up a block or do whatever. But that's a position that there's no necessary contact for that. Let's just let the long snapper get the ball back. To your point,
and I agree with you. Adams wasn't intending; it wasn't a malicious hit, but it was still, in my mind, still a penalty.
Yeah. Anytime an injury happens, we always talk about next man up, and that's been sort of the mantra of this team this year already. But anytime a receiver gets hurt, there's usually a capable guy. He might not be as good. There's a capable guy to fill in. A running back, same. Defensive back, sometimes the same. Quarterback, okay, that's a little bit different. But long snapper, it seems like there's this massive drop-off where there's not a sort of 1A, 1B long snapper. It's like, I got my starter, and then maybe I got a guy who might be able to get it back there.
Yep. And nobody really practices it.
Yeah, more teams maybe need to practice. Or
they should, just in case. Because although, you know what, the rules have made it safer so that guy's not injured as often. Because they used to get plowed really hard, and they're always getting hurt. So there are always other guys practicing the art of long snapping. Now we go to practice all the time, Taylor. We don't see anybody else doing it other than the guys who are on the roster to do it, right? So somebody should always be ready to take it, and I think that's what Ottawa proved because you do. When you say next man up, sometimes and the Riders, it's more than next man up. It's the next man after the next man up in some of these situations. So, but long snapper would be a good spot. You can spend a long time playing in the Canadian Football League if you've got big hands and you can snap a ball back 15 yards.
Yeah. And you don't have to take a lot of contact, as we said, right?
It's getting safer.
A good career.
Yeah.
So as for those next men up, I wrote that last week, but Johnny Johnson, the third, had I would say, great game. His first 100-yard game. Dylan Jette had a great game. I would say that was the most unexpected performance. Caught that touchdown pass, the first pass of the game. He looked really good. Jonathan Edwards, as we said, defensively looked good as one of those fill-in guys. And I guess back to the receivers, Deshaun Mims, I think, had a good performance.
Yeah, Mims took a while to prove himself to me. I watching him come in, it didn't seem like he was an exceptionally hard worker. But they've talked quite a bit about how hard he worked this offseason. And his hard work is starting to show up, right? He caught a big pass in the Edmonton game, I believe it was, and had a really good game against Ottawa. He's running the right routes. He's catching the ball, not really any drops. So good for him for stepping up, right? He was a part-time player for last year and this year. They need him now, and he's made the contributions. He's made the effort to get where he needs to be, and it looks like they can count on him now to fill in their next man up philosophy.
Yeah, that sort of allowed, I don't know how hurt Daniel Weeb was going into the game, but that allowed Daniel Weeb just to focus on returns and keep him as a returner and don't have a starting receiver as a returner because I don't think that's necessarily a recipe for success. That was, again, like we talked about the old days, if you want to call it that. It was always usually a starter or somebody. There was never really specialists. It was always, put one of your faster players back there. But then now we're into the specialist league, right, where everybody is a specialist now.
Ottawa's one of the rare teams with Khalil Pimpleton, their starting receiver, also is their main returner, but not many other teams do that. You're right.
There used to be a field goal kicker and a punter, right? You did the same thing, so it was. Times have certainly changed since we started covering the whatnot. So the Riders have Hamilton this week, and Hamilton's a strange team because they didn't look great with Jake Dolegala the last time they faced Saskatchewan. Trey Ford didn't really look great when he started, and then they went to Harrison Frost last week, and they lost by 3 to BC with Nathan Rourke. So BC much better with Nathan Rourke. Hamilton looked okay. I don't necessarily think they're back to contender status with the rookie quarterback, but I feel like they'll put up a better fight this week, especially at home.
Yeah, Hamilton surprised me in BC, how well they played with Harrison Frost making his first pro start. I don't know what Scott Milanovich is doing with his quarterback roulette stuff. Dolegala was horrible against Saskatchewan, that's true, but Trey Ford, I think, can get you some victories. That's what they brought him in for. Now basically what Milanovich has done is ruined both of them. The only guy, right, they have no confidence. The team has no confidence in them. So if they don't win with Harrison Frost, which probably won't happen because when you're down to your 4th-string quarterback, you're probably in a lot of trouble. Somehow or other, they hung tight with BC. BC didn't look outstanding, and Nathan Rourke's just getting back into the roster too. So maybe he's just getting his timing back, and I'm sure he wasn't very happy with how he played. But Hamilton's, because of that game, it's going to be a tougher game for the Rough Riders than you and I probably thought it was going to be. We thought they'd waltz in there to Hamilton Stadium and waltz out with 2 points. But it looks like they're giving it a spirited effort, and it's impressive. But I still think the Rough Riders are the better team when they come out of Hamilton. They should have another 2 points.
They should, right? And I don't think Hamilton will catch them off guard. I think Ottawa, in a little bit, caught the Riders off guard because, as we sort of mentioned beforehand, they had fired their defensive coordinator going in, so it was a sort of new-look team. They switched up a couple of positions, so it was this sort of guessing game, but I think the Riders know what they have facing Hamilton. I don't know how much they're going to be favored. I'm not going to bring up trap game again because I think they know what they're going to get, but I still think it should be a good challenge. The Riders should be favored by a few on the road, but I still think it's going to be relatively close.
Hamilton's still a tough, one of the tougher road trips too for them to make. So how humid is it out there? Are they used to that? Is the heat going to be much? That plays into it a little bit. But what are the Tiger Cats doing? And they've only got one game of tape of Harrison Frost playing. So, can they add new things? Is Hamilton limited? So the preparation is going to be a little bit different. But you know what? The Rough Riders don't have to worry about that as much. Their offense is clicking. I don't think they have to worry that a whole lot. Hamilton's defense is pretty decent, but I don't think they have to really alter their game plan. It's been an effective game plan. That, as Corey May said, the team is Tommy Stevens, the short yardage quarterback, is paying his teammates to stop at the 1 yard line so he can plow in for the final because he's had 3 short yardage touchdowns in each of the last 2 games. Really been impressive. He's become a real fan favorite, but that's almost unstoppable. And then they use him as a closer to wind down the clock at the end of the game. So I think the way the Rough Riders are playing now, offensively in particular, I think they're the better team going into Hamilton, and they're the better team coming out of it. So good luck, Hamilton, trying to stop this offense.
Yeah, and again, we haven't really talked about Trevor Harris. I think we mentioned him a couple of times, but when the Riders are dealing with injuries, they need the depth to step up, but they need their good players to be their good players, or their best players to be their best players. Trevor Harris did just that, 400 yards, became the 12th quarterback all time to hit 40,000. He just keeps ascending, in my opinion, even though he keeps aging. Obviously, he's now 40, but he just keeps looking better and just outstanding. And Keyshawn Johnson, right? He had a couple of drops, but your best receiver has to be your best receiver, and he was just that. So that duo, I think, was a big reason why the Riders were able to pull away. Plus, you have the depth, and plus you have Tommy Stevens, who can rumble in for 3 touchdowns. So yeah,
he's really been a security blanket for them, hasn't he? Did you like his smashing the water bottles together? Is that? reference to Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? I guess he likes that. Tommy Stevens, we've all talked about what his nickname should be. I guess he likes the Stone Cold Tommy Stevens reference as much as anything.
He's buying right into it. Yeah, he's not shying away from it. And some players would shy away from it or sort of
he loves it.
Subdued, but he's building
he's a character. He's really popular here. We like him when we interview him. He seems to be popular. He works so hard. He takes hard hits. His teammates must really respect him too. And man, he's as unstoppable a short yardage player as I've ever seen, right? I think they must let him pick where he's going, but on that line of scrimmage, how he finds the best spot to go. And even when he runs an end around, I don't know how many options he's allowed on the play, but he's really good at that role.
Yeah, so the Riders now sit atop the West at 6-2. Edmonton lost to Montreal last week, so they're now 6-3. Saskatchewan will look to put a bit of a cushion on their first place lead atop the West as they visit Hamilton on Saturday. Darrell, thanks as always for chatting, and we'll talk to you next week.
Always fun, Taylor. See you soon.